Hey guys. Hey guys, we'll be live in about 6 minutes, give or take. Bear with me here. I'm still setting a few things up, trying to shovel some ramen noodles in my mouth. Hell yes, it's happening 33 times in a row. I figure I missed out on this in 2018 because I couldn't do it, so now is a really good time to come back to it full bore. I was laughing because by the time I finish this first week of broadcast, Twitch is apparently going to, that'll apparently make me eligible for Twitch's affiliate program now. Believe me, guys, if I thought I could make a living at this instead of going to work every day at 8 a.m. and stay until 5, I would happily do this and stream from 8 to 5 and be happier about it. Well, the good news is Twitch appears to have fixed their viewer counts because last night I had, I don't know, 14 or 15 people in chat and it told me that they were all figments of my imagination, so that was fantastic. So today I'm only going to be able to do this for a couple of hours. I've got a D&D game I play in on Saturday nights about twice a month. I got to be there at 7, so I got to knock off early enough to get ready to get there. Well, I was telling the wife, and my wife is, we're playing 3.5. I've played everything from first all the way through 3.5. I don't play 4 and 5. I haven't played recently enough, aside from this group, to have any familiarity with those rules. I own a copy of the 4.0 rules I've never actually used. I don't think anybody even uses it anymore. I mean, when I say I'm old school, I mean I cut my teeth on D&D with a boxed copy of the 1977 blue box rules that my uncle had on his bookshelf and let me have. And I wish I'd been a little better kid because I would have kept it. I would have kept it all these years instead of having it get ruined along the way. But here we are. It's not that I'm a hardcore geek or anything. It's just that I've been doing this for 40 years. I used to be hip. I used to be with it. And then he changed what it was. And it'll happen to you. All right, let's do this. Before we get underway, I do want to check the sound. Let me know if you guys can hear me over this okay. Just a precaution. Like to make sure that it's properly ducking the audio so that you guys can hear me. All right, assuming you guys can hear me over Simon Swerwer here, I'd say we're in good shape. Okay, cool. Sorry, my chat was hanging there for a minute. Damn it, Twitch, make this easier on me already. Okay, I'm going to kill the music because SoundSense will start music pretty much as soon as we get going. Okay, let's load this bad boy up and take stock of where we left off, because we've already fended off an attack that we weren't ready for, so let's make sure that we get things where they need to be. Okay, so we've got some baby animals that need to be properly pastured. That's good. Oh, see, something died, presumably of starvation, I'm guessing, right here in the middle of this hallway. That ain't good. I think we lost a dwarf. Not sure how he died there. Must be died of his wounds, maybe. Didn't make it back to the hospital. It's all right. We have a burial detail. Okay, and they're delivering our goods for the autumn arrival. Okay. We'll request our trader and get some goods moved. We have plenty of drinks and an ample supply of plants to make more, so we can actually part with a few of those and not really hurt ourselves much. We also have 300 prepared meals ready, so all this food here is purely for making meals at the moment. Broken tissue with an infection. Uh-oh, Senjai is going to die of infection. I told you that noble was going to have a problem. The world never changes. World never changes. Yeah, I got to do it early today, Senjai. On alternate Saturdays, I have a D&D game that I play in, so got to stream earlier in the day than 8 o'clock, because I'll be right in the middle of things at that point. And as before, what I typically want from the dwarves are materials to make things pointy and materials to keep my dwarves in clothing. Leather, cloth, metal bars. I'll also take seeds, because having an ample stockpile of seeds on hand is nice. Rock nuts can actually be eaten. And along with cloth, it's usually beneficial to consider taking some thread, because you can use that to make more cloth, A, and also it helps you with your hospital to have cloth thread for those people who need it. Okay. Save me some trees, save me some trees. Don't believe we have a source of sand on site, so we'll bring some sand if we can. Now, the catch here is that every time we trade well, they're going to tend to want to bring the expensive items. It's not actually the trader dwarf, it's the outpost liaison. He tends to arrive with the traders, but it's possible you can have no trader and still receive an outpost liaison. Um, so when we're done here, so this is what we offered. This is what he's going to offer us. Hang on a second. And as soon as this is done, I'll show you what I'm talking about. So we could get a good price for warhammers or battle axes or maces especially. Okay, that's good. We can make maces. Or we could make crowns, and we can make crowns and musical instruments out of rock in a lot of cases. So those are good choices. Although rock isn't particularly valuable and those metal instruments would be worth more, or those metal weapons would be worth more, we're better off to keep the metal weapons for ourselves and sell lots and lots of rock crowns than we are to screw around with wasting our metals on trade. So if I pull over here to the units list for other, there's the outpost liaison, Cog Evan Salon right here is our outpost liaison. He's our diplomat. Now he'll show up typically alongside the caravan, but they can show up at different times. They can show up separately. They can show up one without the other. So generally speaking, you'll get them at the same time, but that doesn't mean that they will necessarily arrive at the same time. Okay, Senjai, what you doing here, buddy? Get up here and there we go. Now, bear with me. I'm going to mark a whole pile of trade goods here, and I'm probably not going to talk for a minute while I do it. So just hang in there, and the standard rules apply. I'm looking for things we can make stuff out of that we need. Whew. Okay, let's knock off there for a second and trade some stuff. I mean, I could sell him this artifact, and hey, presto, we're going to be like, we can buy the entire caravan with that one item. Okay, now as of this moment, we do not yet have enough trade goods on the site to get everything we might want. So we're going to have to back down on some of the things we originally wanted. And I will do that starting with animals, because although I really would like to have the additional animals, I'm willing to part with them if it means I get wood and bars and seeds and other items that we really need for the fortress at this present moment. Let's see if he'll take that. There we go. Good. Now we'll move some additional goods in to try and get the rest of the leather and things we need. Let's see if we can't get the last few things we want. So we've got a good chunk of cloth now. I'd really like to get some additional leather, and then when they arrive next year, we've kind of been putting it off because we've had things in the way, and I've spent so much time unpaused with. So why not sell the artifact? Well, a couple of reasons. The artifact is more valuable than everything on the entire wagon, probably, and then some. So we would waste a lot of trade good value if we did that. A. B. I like to take my artifacts, stick them in a vault, and then lock them up with doors and chain guard dogs and traps, and then dare people to get in and try and take them. So hospitals in the current version actually work really well. I won't go so far as to say perfectly, but they work really well. Let's go take a look at our hospital here. We do not currently have. It's doubling as our dormitory, which is kind of a shame. We really need to get some bedrooms up as well. But I've spent more time explaining these things with stuff off pause than I normally would have in prior years, and so normally we would not be in our second year of dwarf time yet, but we would have accomplished a great deal more in that first year normally. So our dormitory here is set up as dual use. Basically, it's a hospital and a dormitory as well. And if in the current version, if you check the hospital information on your hospital zone, it will tell you what's stockpiled there, and it will stockpile up to those amount in any containers that you build in the area. So I built 3 coffers that's housing all of our thread, cloth, splints. It may not be able to hold all the splints, or we may not have enough splints and crutches made. I'm not sure whether this is a lack of space or a lack of materials. It doesn't matter. We've got plenty for now. Um, we have soap on hand for infections in the whole 9 yards. So this is where you'd want to be, at least for a basic hospital to start. If you want to have a larger hospital, you're going to need to expand the individual amounts that are here, keeping in mind that this isn't 89,940 units of thread. It's 89,940, call it dwarf inches of thread, where an inch is not what you use to make an item. It's several inches to do it for each use. So they'll use this up in larger quantities than one at a time. Ditto with the cloth. This isn't 54,000 units of cloth. It's more like 54 units of cloth and no thousandths. So we've used a little thread here for stitching people up. We've probably used some cloth for, bandaging wounds and the like. Yeah, all this stuff works. As far as I know, I've never had a problem with this since they fixed it. And he fixed it probably back in V34, maybe even. It's been a long time this has been working. Um, Today, this part works really well. I have no real complaints over that. Now, keep in mind, when I say basic hospital, I don't have any tables for surgery. I don't have any traction benches built. That's on the list of things we need to do. We don't have a well yet to cleanse wounds with. That's on the list of things to do. Um, in order to do that, we're going to need, well, metals. And how do we get that? Well, we built this stockpile last time to house the materials we were going to use to build the things we need for the stuff we're getting ready to try to make. So let's do that. Let's set up a manager job for all of our smelting and to keep our ores being processed without flooding our stockpile with bars that we can't use. Now, on our site, iron ore is come in the form of limonite, and so we'll smelt 20 limonite jobs. Anytime there's a condition where our daily job detects that we have fewer than 100 iron bars, it will attempt to make a bunch of iron. Done with that guy, we'll queue up another job for coal because we have bituminous coal on site and we will make coke from bituminous coal. We'll queue up 10 of those jobs. Again, same thing. We'll set up a condition based on the product. We'll make sure it's checked daily. Oops, sorry, it already was. We'll make sure it's less than. We'll set up a number and we'll have 50 units of coke. We'll make more. Then we'll escape. And I want this one to actually come ahead of the limonite. And the reason is I want this condition checked first every single time. If there is coke on hand and we have the opportunity to make coke and we need it, I want them doing that rather than making iron initially. Because the iron will use up my coke potentially if they use the wrong forges. Now it won't today for our fort because we are using a magma forge, no fuel required. But except for making steel, which actually uses the fuel as part of the reaction. But you can make copper and gold and iron and all the other metals with a magma forge, no fuel required. You can make the coke, again, no fuel required. You're just burning the coke down or burning the coal down. But if you're operating on a fairly standard area and you haven't tunneled all the way down to magma and you are using fuel for your forge reactions, you want to make sure that you have an ample supply of coke and that your coke cycle is being filled before your iron or copper cycles are being run, because if you run out of coke, those other cycles will shut down and you won't be able to reverse back into the coke cycle without making some charcoal or doing something else to prime the pump again. Now, once we get some iron smelted, I will make some iron blocks, some iron chains, and some iron buckets. If we have gold, I'm not sure if we've actually struck gold on site yet. Let's check our stocks. If we have gold, then I would do it out of gold in a lot of cases because gold is more valuable for us here. So let's take a look at bars and see what we've got. We've got 2 gold bars, which is nice. That's good, but we've imported them basically is what that means because uh, we don't have in quantity. So like the bronze we made, and we haven't yet started to smelt the iron, which is why that's so low. But once we start smelting limonite, this'll ramp up. We haven't yet found gold, which is why we only have 2 of each of these types of bars because these are the ones we've been importing. The horse soap we made. Now here's an example. This is a perfect example of what I was talking about earlier. We have 5 bars of horse soap. That's all the soap in our fortress right now is just those 5 bars. But if you look at the hospital, you'll notice that the soap is listed as 750 of 750. And if we go and we look through the actual boxes that house all of this stuff, let's take a look and see what's in each of these boxes here. Thread. There's 5 bars of horse soap right there. Just these 5 bars. And yet that is somehow, for our purposes, 750 units of soap. So each bar isn't 1-to-1 here. This is units versus pieces, if you want to think of it that way. It's very strange. I'm not sure. I'm assuming Toady did it this way because hospitals using up these materials aren't using up a full unit each time necessarily, and so they're using up fractional units. You probably don't need a lot of storage space unless you want to build a particularly large hospital, but it doesn't hurt to have extra boxes around for storage. So typically I will stash all the hospital boxes right around the entrance so they can be easily accessed by dwarves who are moving through the area to without having to go further into the hospital dump off their stuff. They can basically just run past on the stairs, drop off the thread or the cloth or the soap or whatever, and keep moving without having to go deeper into this floor. Now we don't have a table for each of these beds, so what each of these beds needs, since this is ideally a hospital, not really a dorm, we're just kind of double using it right now. Each bed needs its own table and its own traction bench. And that's for each patient basically having a surgical suite to themselves. So we're going to slap down a bunch of tables in this room, even though this is not a dining room. And our mason will make some more tables. And that's for surgical interventions, so that our dwarves have someplace to actually do the surgeries rather than doing them in the beds. Trying to improve our outcomes a little bit here. And as we get some iron smelted, which may take us a minute because I'm not sure our jobs have been queued yet, so we're going to add a few jobs here to kind of prime this cycle and get them down here smelting us some ore. Once we've got these materials, we can make traction benches. We'll need chains, we'll need mechanisms, that kind of stuff for our wells. The iron is a great weaponable metal, but it also has decent value in its own right. So for weapons, obviously you want weaponable metals only, but iron makes a good metal if you don't have anything else available in terms of value uh, to make your valuable stuff like wells out of or chains out of. It's not so much that you're looking at it so much for its strength at that point, so much as you are its actual intrinsic material value. No, Cherubim, I do not have any. I do not have any insight into the Kit Fox group whatsoever. I stream for charity, and that's all I do. It'll be ready when they say it's ready. That's more than that I can't say. I haven't heard any plans for them to release it on Good Old Games. I think if they were wise, they would look to do a release there at some point, but I don't know that they are planning one currently. You might check with Clinadev if he's here at the moment. Hang on a second. Let me see if he's in chat. No, he's not in chat at the moment. He has a little bit of insight into the group because he moderates on their Discord. He might have some insight into what they are planning in terms of release schedules and the like, but I don't. I have no access into that information. I'm not part of their group, and they are not. I'm not privy to their stuff, and they're not going to share it with me, and that's okay. I have a job. I have things I have to do. I can't possibly be in everything at once. Get us another pile of flux stone. Problem is, we're eating our stones up here. So we need to do one other thing that we normally wouldn't. I wouldn't normally care about this, but we're consuming our stone so fast at the moment that we are. Marble is not listed as a restricted stone, and I want to make marble a restricted stone. It's being used for these things and these things only. The reason is because although we have an ample supply of marble on site, right now we don't have access to large supplies of it. And so if I decide to make any steel items, I need to have some marble flux available to make steel and pig iron. So we've disabled marble for use in furniture and blocks, and I've turned it off. I've made it into a restricted stone. Now we're well out in terms of value thanks to our artifacts. We're well out into Titan attack area at this point. So at this point, now that we've made a few artifacts, if you don't have a way to seal yourself up, you are really living dangerously because Forgotten Beasts are going to start paying you visits and you're going to start getting a lot more fortress traffic at that point in terms of invasions and the like. Okay, let's drop back down to our good. We're getting smelting done. That's fantastic. So let's go ahead and add a couple of items here. Gold chains, gold buckets, gold blocks. We need 4 of each to make a well, so that's a few bars of gold that we don't have currently. And I don't believe we actually have gold on site, and I don't believe there's any gold left in the wagon. So we'll make a couple of gold chains, and I'll probably swap it out for iron buckets and iron blocks for our well. Okay, so let's take another look here and see where we're at. We've already started to make some anvils. I believe I queued up a job for those. So now we have enough anvils to finish off the remainder of the magma forges. And it's worth noting that this is something you definitely want to do sooner rather than later. It is possible, however unlikely, that you'll get a magma crab floating up around under your forges if you've punched into the magma sea like we have here, uh, and scaring your forge workers. So getting these built and sealed off so that this is once again a sealed area is a good idea. Now, magma crabs aren't really usually a threat, but they will happily throw shit at your dwarves from in the magma, and that ain't good. So let's see. Animals growing up. That's good. I think we said we had some animals that we hadn't pastured yet, didn't we? Let's do that. Make sure we got all those grazers put someplace where they can actually eat something. Okay, and aside from the cats, the only thing that's not already in a pasture are birds and dogs, neither of which graze, so that's okay. We're good there. We'll get the birds added to their pasture, and the dogs added to their pasture. Now, in addition to this being a pasture area for the dogs, we're also going to make this into an animal training area, and we can have somebody start on training those dogs. So let's talk animals. So let's go in here for a minute, and we'll war train a bunch of these dogs. Now, of course, keep in mind, war dogs are nice, but they are not a match for an armed and armored goblin unless they hit the same goblin en masse. They'll wear him out and they'll eventually take him down. But individually, one on one, war dogs are not particularly powerful. It's their group status. You can cage them up in the near the door and release them as a dog bomb right into the middle of your enemies. At which point, if you've got traps and dogs and all kinds of stuff hitting these goblins from all different directions, it makes it a little easier for things like your archers to shoot down on them and that kind of thing. Combined arms is generally speaking where dwarves will succeed. If you were here for our last stream, then you saw us attacked by trolls and cave ogres and crundles, and it wasn't so much that we were highly skilled dwarves, well fitted for military combat. It's a bunch of slackwit nobodies who had some bronze axes and shields that I made at the beginning of the embark, and because they're attacking en masse, the ogre might be able to deal with one of them, but he can't stop the other 9 axes from hitting him, and at which point he gets made into hash browns. 10-on-1 odds is better for the dwarves. Unfortunately, since we don't have any armor, it's not capable. It's not really possible for those unskilled military dwarves to avoid taking some injuries and casualties of their own. So Cherubim, yes. So for the record, if you're out there right now and you're still listening, you can watch it here on Twitch for 14 days. They keep the video on demand around for that long. If it fails that you can't watch it the next 2 weeks, you're going on vacation, you're going to Hawaii, you're going to Mars, doesn't matter. You can catch it out there on my YouTube channel. Uh, and I don't know if I have a link to the YouTube channel out there at the moment, but bear with me and I'll post one to the chat here in a second. And I keep all of these archived out there on YouTube indefinitely. I have all of my older tutorial series is going back to, I think, 2016 or 2014. I've done this for like 5 or 6 years in a row now. Several different tutorial streams as I tried to get my head wrapped around how to stream and how to teach Dwarf Fortress at all to new players. You can even go back and look at some of the older tutorial streams for older versions if you're really curious about how things might have changed along the way. This tutorial stream we've done a little rough because I've spent a lot more time off pause than I normally would, trying to keep things moving and interesting rather than taking time as I have in prior years with long paused times. In prior years, we would have advanced dwarf time much more slowly. We'd have gotten a lot more tasks accomplished because we would have effectively been minding our dwarves a lot more closely. Yeah, and the random dead mule became a skeleton and killed several dwarves. Well, he had to get revenge. Remember, we used him as bait for the were lizard. It was just revenge. The mule was just trying to get even with us for sacrificing him to save our dwarves. And people say the undead have no motivation in life. Speaking of undead, have any of you all out there seen the Vampire the Masquerade Bloodline sequel that they're getting ready to put out? Any fans of the original game sitting out there in the chat? Stop, stop. My penis can only get so erect. Yeah, it's looking good. My wife never had a chance to play the first one, and I'm kind of loath to point her at it because it can be a little buggy, but I'm hoping the second one will be produced with a higher quality of software, if not necessarily narrative, and I'll be able to introduce her to that setting. I've never actually played the tabletop game. I mean, I have the rules. They're sitting on a shelf over there. I've made characters and poked around at it, but I've never actually played VTM on the tabletop. I have uh, an entire library shelf that's like 8 feet high and 4 feet wide. That's just full of role playing game books and modules and notes and folders full of old characters and all kinds of shit just jammed into a shelf. Looks like we don't have any tallow. Do we have anybody we can butcher? Let's check to see if I've got any animals ready for butchering here. Foals and calves I want to let grow up so we get the full measure of their meat before we use them. We have 2 male cats. We do not. Kitten biscuits are back on the menu, boys. In fact, we have a pet male cat, so we definitely don't need 2 unattached male cats. They can both be butchered. And we already have a male kitten, so we're in good shape there. Excellent. So let's sidestep for a moment. Let's introduce another one of those tools I love to use. Auto Butcher. Okay, I've been doing this manually all this time, and I've introduced players into how to do this manually, if you will. But there's a much better way, so much better menu if you're using DF Hack. Will bring up the auto butcher menu, and what auto butcher will do once you start it up is it will automatically monitor your animal populations and set animals for butchering in the most intelligent fashion possible. And here's what I mean. You set the caps on males and females, adults and kids. Okay? So if I want to have a small number of kids but maintain a large number of adults for production purposes, then, like, say, for eggs, where I'm not butchering the birds, I'm just harvesting the eggs. So I need a large number of adults, but I only need a small number of kids to occasionally replace the adults as they age out. If I'm raising a meat industry, like, say, pigs, then I want a large number of adults and a large number of kids because I need to constantly be replacing the adults with the kids as I butcher them down. Um, and Auto Butcher respects the age of your animals. So it will butcher excess young ones from the youngest first, giving the older ones a chance to mature into adults. And it will butcher the oldest adults first, giving you more meat before they die of old age, effectively giving you the highest quantity of meat and the greatest throughput of animal production chain. Okay? Now, by default, it will automatically set caps on your races. If I started this up right now, it would immediately set about half my animals for butchering because it's only going to allow one male kid and one male adult and five female and five female kids. That's per race. So cats would get this filter, dogs would get this filter, pigs would get this filter, sheep would get this filter. We probably exceed several of these cases. For what I would typically suggest is that you remove this first row, which is the all uh, 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 all new races plus all your existing races is the problem. So it'll affect our existing dwarves or existing animals. Oh, you're not gonna let me do that? Okay, fine. Okay, now that will basically say as new animals come in, they are not really being subject to butchering orders. We need to occasionally monitor that we're adding our new types to this if we're keeping them. As new types come in, they'll appear in this list, and we can then set their butchering orders up indefinitely, whether they're on the map or not. So let's go ahead and start Auto Butcher, start Auto Watch, which tells it to look for our people here. We'll back out of this all completely. We'll give it a couple of ticks here to get started. Go back into the animals menu, go back into Auto Butcher. Let's see, are we not adding our folks here? May need a little longer to run. Maybe still in sleep mode. Takes a second before it actually starts up. Auto Butcher doesn't run constantly. It runs on cycles. Good God, we really need a lot of stone. So, since we need a lot of stone, let's talk about how we're going to get it. This is our hospital, and we're going to use it as our. Oops, don't want to do burrows. WASD is not the option here. Now, I need another set of ramps right here, which will bring us up to the surface. And then we'll set up an entrance here. Oh, that's a little far over the edge, though, isn't it? Yeah, it's a little close to the edge. Let's go back and redo this a little bit. This is going to be a fairly basic tavern space. We'll set up some tables and chairs. We won't set up a bartender. Bartenders in the current version are busted. They will feed your dwarves alcohol until somebody dies of alcohol poisoning. They are a source of trouble rather than a source of good. We can kind of fix that by keeping the booze nearby rather than in the tavern, but there's not really a good fix for the bartenders at present, as far as I know. So we're kind of waiting on Toady for that fix. This lower area will become our depot. We'll use this for our trading. Now I know you're thinking, why this single entrance? Right now I'm just thinking how I want to do this. We're going to do 3 rooms off of here, and then we'll have an upper floor where we'll set up tavern bedrooms above it as well and associate those. So anybody who is staying in our fortress as a guest is effectively on the outside of any defenses that we put in this area here. And what we'll do is we'll put a drawbridge that closes this off, and we'll normally leave it down, and we'll put a few traps in right here and door this off so that this is effectively hidden from view and can be sealed from any of this at a moment's notice. And then we will normally allow our dwarves into this, but we'll also make another burrow that does not include these areas in case we need to pull our dwarves back in, say, away from a tavern brawl or away from merchants who are going to go mad because we can't let them out because they'll expose us to a siege or the like. Now, we're going to design our entrance in such a way that I don't think it's possible for it to expose us to a siege, but we'll see. It's possible Toady may have fixed a few things along the way, and some of the tricks I may have pulled in the past may not still function any longer, so we may get a surprise or two along the way. We'll see. But there's our space for our tavern, there's our space for our depot, and now we'll dig the exit out. Now, this has got to be 3 wide for the depot, so each of these actually has to be 3 wide as well. And then what we'll do is we'll have 2 separate drawbridges on either side here that will raise up and allow us to seal the depots in if necessary. If for some reason you need to wall the merchants up, you could. Um, they would then be safe from anything that was in the hallway, but you can't keep them that way forever. If you try to hold them too long after they need to leave, they go berserk. Um, So eventually you've got to let them out and let them take their chances. But you can protect them, say, if they're on the map when trouble arrives. If you think the trouble's, you're going to have to face the trouble all the way this far into your entrance, which you shouldn't, but if you do, then you can at least protect the merchants so that they don't lose value and hold it against you. The way merchants work in terms of trade, generally speaking, is they measure profit based on what they had on the map when they came in and what they had on the map when they came out. And That applies to everything: personnel, items carried, equipment worn, animals that are drawing the wagons themselves, everything in them, all the trade goods on the animals, you name it. Every single item, object, person, thing that comes with them, in and out, is measured in terms of dwarf bucks, raw profit. So by giving them a heaping profit, you encourage them to bring more valuable trade goods back next time. By giving them a shitty profit or a lower profit, they'll bring less, not come, or if they're of another race other than dwarves, potentially declare war. If you're one of those folks who wants to go to war with the elves on day one, waiting until they arrive with their first caravan, walling them in and waiting for them to go berserk, then releasing them into a set of weapon traps, and harvesting their trade goods is a prime way to get people angry with you in a hurry. Now, our mason is apparently busy doing other stuff at the moment. We don't have a any tables. Did we turn mining off on our mine? Or do we just really need to designate a whole lot of space here? Oh, no, this is marble. I won't let them use the marble for anything other than. That's why. That's why they're still complaining, because I won't let them use the marble to make statues. I want to make sure we have plenty for steel. Selling them wood makes them angry and makes them button their stuff up, but if you really want to piss them off, kill their people. Just start murdering them. I promise you, that's better than just trying to sell them wood. If you piss them off by trying to sell them wood, they pack up their goods and storm off. Boo hoo. You could theoretically put one wood item in the depot, try to sell it to them. When they say, "Oh, shitty, we're getting pissed, we're leaving," you immediately recall your broker, wall them up, and then you get the advantage of having pissed them off, locked them in, sent them berserk, released them into the weapon traps, killed them all, stolen all their goods. If that don't do it, nothing will. So just west of our current bunker is where we'll build uh, our proper entrance. Right here is where everything's going to be, and that should be in the overall, fairly close to the center of the map. The bunker was a little closer, but I don't want to try and disassemble that and build over it. We would have to build completely around it. Plus, since our fort is here, having any activity going on away from the fort means we could keep this as a sally port, if nothing else. Oh, riot it up, kids. Not on today's stream. We may go to war with them in a future stream, but I'm actually hoping that they will bring us useful animals. They already brought us a giant badger, which we promptly butchered and made into roasts. Um, the one thing that the elves do right, the only one thing that they really do right, is they bring animals that no other race seems to ever bring. They bring exotic giant animals that can be bred. So if you're one of those guys who wants to have animal taming in your fort and you want to have giant war animals, keeping the elves friendly for a while you try to find a breeding pair of something you like is useful. Now, if you're just giving up on it and you're just fuck it, you're just going to build dogs and cats and pigs and sheep, go for it by all means. Don't let me stop you. But if you want to have giant war panthers, well, you're going to have to make a deal with the devil a little bit. I don't remember if unicorns are. I remember mer people were at one point, and Tony got pissed that somebody built a mer person harvesting factory. They used to be harvestable for valuable products. Mer people, you could harvest them for, I don't know, scales and bones and what all. And somebody figured out a way that you could basically lure them in, breed them en masse, filter out the big ones from the small ones, air drown the big ones, harvest them. Tony was not pleased. This is no longer possible. Let's see. We need to make some things that we're not. Normally, I would have done it before, and I don't think I have. Oops. I don't need that now. We'll make a bunch of wooden crossbows and a few extra bins. We almost always are going to need bins from here on in. So the drink stockpile is good. Good. Yep, yep, yep. Prepared meals are probably still holding. I think we set it up for like 300. Yeah, we're doing good there too. Okay. And the well is in good shape. Okay, let's talk about industries. What workshops do we not have? If you've not noticed previously, as you go through the workshop list, it will put a number next to the number of them in your fortress, allowing you to identify those industries which you have not yet set up. So, for example, we don't have a quern or millstone to mill plants. We don't have a screw press to press seeds into oil. We don't have a dyer's shop to dye cloth. We don't have a fishery to process fish. A siege workshop to build ballistas and catapults. A metalsmith's forge we don't need because we actually have a magma forge downstairs, remember? But if in the early game, if you are operating on a site that doesn't have easy access to magma, then there you go. I think we made a quern previously, we just never actually put it down. So let's see. There's our food handling area. Let's go down here one and dig out a couple spots for a quern. Now, the reason I'm adding these additional workshops is currently we have one farmer's workshop and one butcher's workshop. And while the one butcher's workshop is more than sufficient for right now, later on when we have to harvest animals en masse due to a mass birth, for example, it's essential that we can process them quickly, get them milled down, and immediately get them into the food stockpile. So the advantage here is that these are the food stockpiles, so anything we're storing can be like taken one square and dropped, and we're there. Additionally, it's adjacent to the garbage chute, so any animal waste byproducts that are starting to rot are a very short distance from the garbage chute to get them out of the way. Now let's put down those querns that we were doing originally. And that will allow our dwarves to mill plants by hand. Now, in a long-term fortress, I would typically build a dwarven water reactor or a gravity-fed uh, water flow system to provide power inside the fortress for a powered millstone and devote an area specifically to milling elsewhere. Now, that'll require your dwarves to haul flour, so you usually have to move the power a ways. But we could take advantage of our existing system. Remember, we allowed ourselves a way to drain the water from this piping originally, if you recall. It would be possible for us to drain the well temporarily, tap this pipe, provide water on this floor for a dwarven water reactor, seal it or close this off with the same U-bend pipe trick that we use downstairs so that nothing gets in. Pull water into the water reactor, close it up, turn on the water reactor, and mill plants directly adjacent, say right here, for example, to where the stockpile is that the milled plants are going to go. Now we'll do that down the road. Water reactors suffer the same problems of mist generators. Moving water in large quantities generates mist, it generates moving fluids, that's additional pathfinding. It's, each unit of water is really like 7 units of depth, and each unit of depth has to track its own location in a lot of cases. Okay, let's see. How are we doing for animals now? Anybody grow up? Oh, that's right. We were still talking about Auto Butcher. We never got to it. There we go. So it's got all the animals we had in our fortress, but it's assigned them the default 20, 20, 20, 20, 20 across the board. Now, that's way too many animals. If you're not going to tightly monitor them, like, penning them up in cages where they have one square and they can't move, chaining them so that so that they're all chained in little tiny holes and can't get out of them, so that you minimize their pathfinding as much as possible with locking doors and the like. Unless you're going to do that kind of stuff, you don't want to carry this many animals, and we're not going to. What we are going to do is go through, and any animal we're not planning to keep, like the alpacas, we'll leave the female and male kid limits where they are, but we'll set all the female, adult, and males to 0. And when they grow up, they'll automatically be set for butchering. They'll be processed, rendered, and be completely eliminated with no mess, no fuss, no effort further on down the road. So at this point, there's one alpaca, and there's 2 options here. It could be a pet. I didn't look to see if it's a pet. Auto Butcher doesn't touch pets by default. I don't believe it will allow you to auto butcher pets, but you could take a look. I've never tried. Um, in the case of the blue peafowls, we're going to leave them here. As they grow up, we will process them down, but we're primarily making them for their eggs. And so we won't, generally speaking, allow the eggs to hatch, and that will prevent the kids from being born. We'll have to occasionally let a wave of eggs be hatched so that our population will be replaced. For cats, we want to minimize the number of adults. because they will become adopted. And so we're going to try and keep it down to, say, 3 females and 3 males. And then we'll go down on that one, and we have to get rid of the kids as well because they could get adopted as kittens, and we don't want that either. So the male and female kids have to be reduced. Slow population growth. We don't want to have to atom smash kittens if we can avoid it. Dogs will be taking losses in combat. So we'll not only need a high number of kids to replace adults, but we'll probably also need a slightly higher number of adults than we might otherwise want. Now, in this case, I want to keep more females and more than I want to keep males. And that's because the females reproduce. And that will get you your turnover in dog food, ha ha ha, but also in terms of replacing your losses. You need a few males, you need a lot of females, and that's your maximum turnover. For mules, I will let the kids grow up as long as we don't have too many of them, so we'll limit them down to, say, 5 kid mules on each type, and then 0 adults because I don't need them. I'm not keeping them around as grazers. If you wanted to keep mules in your fort, you'd have to turn this to something other than 0, obviously, because you don't want to butcher them as they grow up. For pigs, we're just going to do a straight throughput. For rabbits, I honestly don't want rabbits at all, but we will we will allow a few rabbits in for kids, and then males, and then we will get rid of any adults that are not pets. And for sheep, we'll do throughput. For turkeys, these guys can be the same as the others. We'll, a handful of females, a handful of males, and then butcher them as soon as they hit adulthood. Now, the reason this is 1 of 0 is it's letting you know it's above its quota. Now, that could be for 2 reasons. 1, because you have an unbutchered female that's eligible, or 2, because there's a pet. Okay, and auto butcher will need to sleep for a cycle, and when it kicks in, it will notify us that it has designated folks as butchered. There's some of our butchering getting done, but I mean it will notice us that it will notify us that it has marked people for butchering, if there are any such. But I'm thinking the turkey's a pet, isn't it? Yeah, right here, turkey hen pet. So they won't mess with that one. Welcome aboard. Okay, and now that we've got these workshops built, we can disassemble them downstairs and provide more room for the primary kitchen building. And then we'll go downstairs. We still need to get a jewelry crafting area up, and I'll show you how. Ooh, this is a good spot for that. That'll work. That'll give our miners something to do, and we'll create some additional stone as well. What are our miners do? Oh, only one of them is busy at the moment. Oh, all right, we're still finishing the entrance. We're scooping up the stone just about as fast as we can produce it. For just a second, I want to crank out a huge number of doors so that we can start putting doors on some of these rooms that we've left just as archways for now. Oh, he's complaining because he can't get to the site because the bridge isn't built. Okay, and now we need a crossover. No, we'll go with the second idea. I like the second idea better. So, what am I doing here? Okay, let's talk. These two bridges to allow me to seal up the depots. We discussed those earlier. This being made out of bronze is just because I'm being ostentatious. There's no particular reason otherwise. Normally I'd make it out of stone, but since I've got the two bronze depots here, I think it'll look kind of nice. Uh, Ideally, you'd want to use something magma safe or fire safe so that it can prevent an accidental magma spill if you're working around magma in this area. We don't have magma here. We're not going to have magma here. It's not going to be an issue for us. If dragons breathe on it, we're going to have much bigger problems than the fact this thing is made out of bronze. Um, this three wide hallway around the exterior is for wagons to traverse. This will allow access to the depots for wagon merchants, which we need. Otherwise, we get less goods brought in. That's not good. We don't want that. We want to avoid that at all costs down the road. Now, this inner path is to allow invaders to come in on a route that is not the wagon path. Wagons don't traverse traps, so we can't trap the wagon path. But we can do all kinds of nasty, nasty tricks in this area in here. Yes, we can. So what we're going to do, I believe, is I'm going to set up a drowning trap. We have a river, like, right above us here. We can drop water into a reservoir above this chamber, drill a couple of holes in the floor for drainage through fortifications, and you can flood this area and use it to simply drown your invaders as they come in. And so that's what we're going to do. Now, I want to look at this. I want to set this up a little bit for a minute here, so I'm going to probably tinker with this for just a moment before I'm happy with it. Bear with me, and I'll explain what I'm changing and why. But basically, I'm not quite happy with how I've done the entrance here. So my idea here is that I'm going to have an exterior door and butterfly a bridge up against it, so that as they enter, they'll go through the door. Invaders don't have problems with the door. They'll break it down if they have to. I don't care. I'm not going to make it out of anything valuable. It's going to be made out of wood or whatever. That's fine. Smash it. I don't care. It's not going to be masterwork. And if it is, my other guy's going to have plenty of masterworks to destroy. Go nuts. Um, at which point, or we could double butterfly 2 bridges in here. I guess that would probably even be better. Let's do that. We'll butterfly a pair of bridges. And that way, if we accidentally get a building smasher in the bridge, it doesn't ruin the drowning trap. We would have to catch 2 of them in the wrong place at the wrong time. So the goal is we will allow ourselves some leeway in the event that there's a bridge mishap, that our drowning trap isn't disabled, just damaged, and can be repaired. Um, Even in the event that something goes horribly, heinously, terribly, terribly wrong, we can always shut the intake off, fire up the drain, and remove the water from the system and also from this hallway as needed, effectively clearing it all out. In the event of a flood, we can seal the bronze gate and flood the wagon path if we have to. This entire hallway can flood all the way up to the surface and basically become an entire flooded channel if it needs to. Um, like once again, when we're ready to be done with that, we flip on the drain and the water will go away lickety split. Welcome aboard, squirrel. All right. So, above this room, we're going to suspend a reservoir to house the water that we're going to use for the drowning trap. Now we can refill that. So that way we can fire the trap, close the reservoir, and have it refilling while the guys are drowning. That way, if necessary, we can drain it off, open it back up, let more guys in, close it back up, and immediately fire it off again, and then refill it at the same time. And it'll refill at river speed, so refilling it won't take very long. Uh, you could increase that speed with automated pumps using watermill driven mechanisms. That's a little complex for early days, and a gravity fed river solution is more than sufficient in most cases. For this chamber, as big as it is, we're going to have no problem building a reservoir that can fill it 3, 4 times over without even draining the reservoir if necessary. And so this will be our reservoir, and we'll run this out to. First, we'll put a pressure regulator in right here. Now remember, we don't want to actually punch a hole yet. That would be bad. Um, but what will happen is when we're ready, when we're ready to start filling this for the first time, we will drain the well a little bit so that the water will shut off the intake, drain the well a little bit so that the water comes down, and then connect the two taps, and we've got them running off one intake at that point if we want. Or if you want to make them separate for purposes of making them not run off the same pipe, then you could simply separate this one and have it run up to the surface nearby or adjacent to the other one if you wanted. As before, we'll grate over the top of this, set up a bridge, punch the hole from the surface with an access in case something goes wrong. If our guy gets swept in or whatever, he can find a way out. And then we'll come back later and just floor over the access because we'll no longer need to get into it. At which point we can close off the intakes for either one of these separately if we'd like. Water still follows the same path as before. It goes down through this one, comes up through the grates. It'll well down into our reservoir. We'll have holes in the punched in this with grates over the top of them, and then the water will flow down through the grates and into the drowning chamber below. Now this is for an access corridor, which we will wall up right here and door off up here for later. There's really no reason once this is done that we should have to get back into it, but in the event that we need to access it, we'll drain out the chamber, turn off the intake, drain out the chamber, unwall this up, and then we can let our dwarves in to do whatever maintenance it is that has occurred. I'm not sure what circumstances would ever need to have access, but we would be able to do it. I was worried about making this aesthetic, but it's not going to quite work out, so that's okay. Not going to sweat it. And we're going to need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 grates, plus 18 for the pipe is 28 grates. And I want those to be done first if possible so that we can get them ready for this as quickly as we can. Okay, what'd we get? Anything good? Anybody we want to keep or a pile of cheesemakers? Let's see, a couple of good smiths. Okay, that should work for now. Reassigning those folks out of the. Oh, I missed a mason. I think we can go ahead and commit those guys too. Now, keep in mind, I'm not really maximizing value optimally here. I'm allowing any mason to work in any workshop on any job. If you want to absolutely maximize your fortress output, and we'll start talking about ways that you can do that later in our probably our second fort. One of the ways you can do that in particular is to set your workshops to only have certain jobs in them. So your high skilled masons are making your furniture and your low skilled masons are making blocks because blocks don't have a quality, whereas the furniture does. And in that way, you can guarantee that your necessary equipment is being made by the people that are doing it well. So let's make an additional couple of craft storks workshops here because we need them. And we'll disassemble that mechanics workshop and replace it with a craft stores workshop momentarily. We have a pile of bones we can make into bolts. We have a pile of wood we can make into bolts. We have cloth. We have leather. That's everything we need to get hunters up and running. Um, we'll get to test out exactly how much of our terrain is potentially reanimating here a little bit. I'm going to expose some of our hunters to danger and we'll do some tests. We'll burrow them in such a way that they don't get up there very far away from the fort. What I suspect is on the surface that there's a biome way down here at the bottom that we missed by virtue of being far enough north. See, his neck didn't come back. But the mule definitely did, and it was far enough south. So what we'll do is we'll maybe only allow him to hunt north of the river, for example. That's not much area to hunt in, unfortunately, but there's not much I can do about that. We'll allow them to hunt north of the fortress, say up here. But I don't know that we have a good fix. Workflow still works, but most of the functionality you're probably going to have cared about from workflow is built into vanilla, unless you were really paying attention to the graphs, the ASCII graphs that workflow provided. Probably what you wanted is already built into vanilla. Everything I used workflow for personally is here. I don't have to mess with it any longer. There are probably some additional features that have been added to workflow that aren't yet in vanilla, but generally speaking, all I wanted from workflow was set up once, ignore afterward kind of micromanagement elimination. And the vanilla function gives me that. So I'm sorry about the mic, but I actually stream with push to talk because my wife and I share the space. I don't have a dedicated streaming studio or anything. So unfortunately, in order to keep background noise from dominating the stream if she's watching television or something, I make sure that you are only hearing the mic when I'm actually speaking. Professional streaming quality? Not here, buddy. We're here for a game and for charity, not for professional streamers. All right. And the miners are getting this all dug out nicely. There we go. Oh! I just realized I'm a total goob. I can't do that with grates. That's got to be hatches for these. Duh. No. Oh, this isn't the entrance. This is the drowning trap. This is the entrance. Dwarves tend to, unfortunately, be outnumbered on the field of combat. Therefore, I see no reason to employ them on the field of combat any more than is absolutely necessary. Primary means of eliminating combat for dwarves is through the use of traps. Those come in three basic flavors that you're probably going to care about: cage traps for capturing your enemies, weapon traps for killing your enemies with weapons, and mechanical traps, which is kind of a giant catch all category that includes a whole slew of other subtypes, including the drowning trap that we're building. For those of you who are curious about how far Dwarven trap development has gone, I encourage you to check out the wiki. The Dwarf Fortress wiki has a fantastic article on traps, including traps like the Degrinchinator that freezes goblins as they walk through a narrow trench. Freezes them straight into a block of ice, kills them instantly, preserves all their goods. So, what have we got? Intruders. So there's a human glassmaker. $10 is there's the necromancer that raised our mule, and we don't have evil terrain. So, we have found our target. Flee, little necromancer, we're coming. Told you I thought it was a necromancer. Figured he was going to try and get in and get after our refuse, but we've got the fortress entrance is so small it would be impossible for him to easily get in. At first, when I saw that miner get hit by the creepy crawler remains that had been thrown in the pit, I thought that he'd managed to somehow get all the way in through this single wide tunnel, all the way into our main stairwell, walk down two flights of stairs, and get into the kitchen area without a single dwarf or animal seeing him along the way, and I was dumbfounded. That kind of stealth would be ninja level. It's not a haunted biome. I In the first fort, when that mule died and came back to life, I thought we had a necromancer hidden on the map, and somebody said they thought we had an evil biome, and I normally don't embark for new players on an evil biome because it's a reanimating biome. That's something you'd save for your second or third fort at least when you've had a chance to get a chance to understand the mechanics. Um, well, the mule came back, and I thought it was a necromancer, and I pulled everybody. I was going to send everybody out, and somebody said, "No, no, it's a reanimating biome." And I thought, "Oh, okay. Well, I didn't remember having one, but I was going to let it go." That's why I have hunters. I wouldn't normally assign hunters in a reanimating biome either. Well, now that he's been discovered by the kitten, we know that he was there all along, stealthed out right there by that mule. So the were lizard that came in, hell, that necromancer, I suppose, could have been a were lizard. That's a frightening thought. A were lizard with the secrets of life and death. Ugh. Um, Now that he's been driven off the map, I'm a whole lot less concerned about the fate of our hunters. Before, I was somewhat nervous, but I don't think that's going to be such a problem now. So let's get some quivers and get those hunters working. As the hunters bring back meat, it'll automatically be assigned to the butcher's shop. They'll rend it down. They have butchery, so in addition to being able to cart their own kills back, they can process them down for the meat. They can process the skins into leather. They can process the bones into bolts. They can process wood if we have any into bolts to fuel themselves. The hunters I set up are basically self-sufficient. The downside is that every hunter effectively has two mutable skills that are not particularly good skills to have. Wood crafting and bone crafting have a downside when they're used as your mutable skills, and that is when a masterwork is destroyed, people get unhappy. And the amount that they get unhappy depends on the amount of masterworks that they've created. If your guy has created an artifact and it gets crushed under a drawbridge, that dude is going nuts if that's the only thing he's ever made that was any good. He is going to wig the fuck out big time. Ditto if it's just a masterwork and it's the first one he's ever made. Um, in order to avoid this issue, because when you fire bolts, they get destroyed. So masterwork bolts get burned. And I don't know if it's been fixed in the current version. I think Toady was going to address it, and I think he reduced the amount that it makes them unhappy. But having their masterwork bolts break still makes them slightly unhappy. It just is reduced by the number of bolts now. So since you're making hundreds of bolts at a time, a bolt isn't such a big deal. But over time, you need to make sure that they're still producing bolts, or they'll burn the masterworks off, and eventually they will be unhappy about it. So we didn't do it in this fort. And Klinadev has talked about doing it for evil biomes, and or has talked about ways he deals with evil biomes, and where animals in the current version are uh, always early attacks in my experience. Even in relatively peaceful biomes, you're going to get a were animal attack in the first couple of seasons normally. It's been the rare fort where I don't see one fairly early, and I had forgotten to prepare for it in this fort, and we were fortunate that the mule jumped out there to take the hit. And then unfortunate when the necromancer resurrected it and sent it after us. But we will produce the quivers. We've already got some crossbows. We'll get some bolts made, and our hunters will gear up and get to work. Now, we have ample supplies of food at the moment. Hunting is an extra. If I need to pull them in and take them off hunting and put them on something else, no harm, no foul. They can still do bone processing, they can still do wood crafting. They still have viable functions inside the fortress other than their hunting. We'll need to do something similar with our fishermen. Speaking of which, let's talk about fishing. Fishing works best when it's done in natural conditions. The problem is, in this area, the only natural conditions we can actually fish in are the river, which has its own problems. So, what we're going to do is we're going to build a small hut here with a grated over entrance, and assuming it hasn't been altered, your fishermen can stand around the grated entrance and fish through the grate into the river. In order to keep them from having to wander overland through the constant and continuing rains of blood that we experience here, we're going to punch a hole down here and connect it up to our fortress so that there's an underground tunnel directly to the hut where the fishing will occur. And then we'll set up a zone where all the fishing occurs in the hole. You can. It's based on the biome where it occurs. If it's a biome where there are naturally fish because there's ponds already there, then making a pond, I believe, will allow you to catch fish in that area, but only the types of fish that would normally be caught. Another trick you can do is to connect the river to your existing ponds. We really don't care that this flow is going to be a little anemic because realistically the river will eventually fill it, and once it does, it's never going to unfill. I don't care about shutting off the intake on the ponds. Let them fill up. At which point we can use the ponds for fishing if we wanted. Now you could fill the pond theoretically through a well design or a pond designation. Have your dwarves manually bucket water into the pond in a big bucket brigade. But to fill up a large pond in a dry biome and keep it there is going to take a substantial amount of dwarves to get to get the ponds full, and I don't know that you'd be able to offset the evaporation quickly enough. We're hoping that this will be ample enough to allow us to fill these three ponds, and I think we'll be okay, but we'll see. Oh, right, barracks. That's something we didn't cover yet. We've created a military, but we've provided them nowhere to train. All of these hatches have to be linked to levers. Now, we don't have to link them to individual levers. We're not going to. We're going to link them all to the same lever. But all 10 of them must be linked in order to function. What are we making here? Something for masonry, we hope, we hope. Oh, nope. It's going to be a craft. Possibly stone crafting, though, which would be good. Okay, our guy with the mood is off and running, so we don't have to worry about him. We don't have to worry about him at all. That's good. Eh. So I'm excited for updates to Dwarf Fortress, make no mistake, but I'm far more excited when systems that have already been implemented are functioning properly and not interfering with play. Our fort is an okay fort. We have moderate stress across the board. Nothing fantastic, nothing terrible. Oh, these must be visitors. I was like, what are they? Why are they not highlighted? Because they're visitors, that's why. I didn't think you could do that for visitors, but I wanted to check. And I don't want to see visitors normally because it's nice that they're here and great and all, but I want them to not show up in the middle of my dwarven labor assignments here. Giving the kitchen workers mechanics as a trade skill, a crafting skill, so that if they do have a mood, they mood into that. Mechanisms, while not necessarily valuable in their own right, particularly even as artifacts, can be placed into traps in any room you like. You can place them anywhere there's a floor. So you can easily build an artifact where, in view of other people, where they can view it and get a happy thought from it. Say near a stairwell, for example, that everybody crosses through. That's some kind of instrument. I'm not exactly sure what a kazar is. We could look, but I'm not overly concerned. Keep his kazar. He can stick that in his kazar and smoke it. Now, while there's a fair bit of stone in this pipe, I'm not actually going to allow them to have it. I'm going to forbid and then hide all of it. Forbid will tell my dwarves, you can't use this, pretend it doesn't exist, never touch it, never move it, don't look at it. Hide hides it from my view so that I can ignore it completely. It'll still show up in the stock screen, so if we don't want to know how many stones we have completely, it'll still be counted, but it will be identified if you expand the list out as a forbidden stone with a hidden marking, and I'll show you those in a moment. By hiding stone like this, you keep your appearance of your fort clean. It doesn't actually remove it from your dwarves' view, only from yours. So if the dwarves need stone and it's hidden, they'll run over to a patch of place that looks empty to you, pick up a rock, and then run away with it. And it'll look like it appears from nowhere. The rock is there all along. It's not prevented from interacting with the mechanics of the game at all. It simply clears up the view for your aesthetics and nothing more. So there's no more rocks above that, so we don't have to worry about that. Let's get a bridge up here. And we need to floor over that old one. And I really don't care what they use because it's just a matter of getting it sealed up. I'm not expecting it to hold off an attack because nothing will be attacking it. It's just to make sure that nobody tries to wander through there for any reason. So they'll grab these logs because they're close, and that's fine. That'll work perfectly. And then when the miners finish up this staircase, we can grate over these floors and build this bridge. And our miner will come and open up the tap for the ponds to be filled. And we've arrived at our second winter. To be honest with you, I have to confess, I find that where people are probably the biggest threat that will face a new player early on that they're not going to know how to counter or be ready for. Um, and I did a very poor job in this stream of actually highlighting exactly how to do that early on. So we're going to make sure we're going to take care of it next time faster when I'm explaining less and playing more. So now our ponds will fill up, and this will take some time, but they will get there, I believe. I don't believe this will evaporate off more quickly than they can be filled. May not be a quick process, but they'll get it, I think. We hope. We'll see. And at that point, we can use the ponds for fishing if we want. Now, I don't know what fish are in this biome, so part of the reason I want to do the hut is to demonstrate that. And now I'm going to stop it here, and we're going to remove a couple of these from actually being floors. This is what happened to us the other day that made me think somebody had gotten in. What this is a cat playing around in the refuse pile while somebody throws something into the pit. Cat gets bonked on the head. Looks like the refuse is attacking the cat, but that's not really what's happening. All right, and as soon as they get those last two wall blocks on the way, we'll unsuspend this last one and I'll start connecting this up from underneath. We'll stick a ramp out there. We'll put a ceiling on this so that it's protected from all sides, and then we'll set this up as a fishing zone. Then downstairs, right below it, we'll set up a fishing elimination area. I switched on gather refuse because I'm going to clean up some of these corpse bits we've got laying around. There's not that many at the moment, and I'd like to get rid of them in case the necromancer comes back. I don't want to leave him troops sitting outside our gates. We can just throw them in the refuse pit. We're fine. Okay. Going to enlarge our wood stockpile a little bit. It's a little crowded in here. There's not enough space to bring in the wood anymore. Whoops. Cut that off too close. Got to go one further out for the wall. So we'll convert those guys into flooring. And there's the roof. And our bridge is done and our grate is done, so we need to go link up a lever. Let's double check that we've put notes on all our linked levers to date. I believe we only have 3, so let's make sure lever number 4 here is properly labeled. It only has its own mechanisms, just one mechanism, so we know it's not linked to anything. Make sure we get the right bridge to link up. And then let these guys run for a minute, get this construction done. Wanna bet? Yeah, that's one of those things you double check. Before I actually employ that as an intake, I'll make sure that it's a raising bridge, that it raises the direction I expect it to, that, oh no, all that stuff gotta get checked. My dwarves will basically run out, snag all this stuff on mass, and make one trip out of it for everybody instead of lots and lots of trips. And there's one of our mules or something grew up. Auto Butcher just took care of it for us. Bang, done. Problem solved. No overpopulation. Now, our fishermen are already busy fishing, which is actually kind of bad for us in this case because they're starting to produce fish and we're not ready for them yet, but that's okay. And the last few blocks to finish this process off. You'll notice our fishermen appear to be actually fishing, which is good. Let's double check and make sure that we can find them in here doing what they're supposed to be doing. Yes, indeed, they are fishing right here. Ding, ding. So they can fish through these grates. Nothing will come in up through them to get them, which protects them effectively from any invaders. Now we need to make sure that these guys get the hole dug because otherwise they have no way out of their fisherman's hut at the moment. Now they can get in and out. Okay, so we need a place for their unprepared fish, their raw fish, to be stored while we're waiting on the fisheries to process them. And then we need a spot for the fish to be stored local to the fishery so that the fishermen aren't running clear to back to the main food stockpile every time they want to drop off a turtle. Well, my love, they'd want to drop off a turtle because Mitch McConnell is awful. Okay, I apologize to turtles. So you can see that should be, I think. Let's double check. Oh, no, creepy crawler. And the fish was stored and the fish was removed. And once our fisheries are built, we can start processing fish, and that's the fishing industry in a nutshell. You need a place to fish it, a place to process it, and a place to store it in both phases, and you're done. Fin, that's all there is. So then, secure and safe, no problem. Boxed in, top to bottom. We got to fill this little hole in that we created when we moved the wall. Should get a small smattering of about 5 dwarves coming up with blocks here momentarily, and that'll be done. There we go. And it looks like it's time to start thinking about getting some gear made for our dwarves. So now we're setting up to mill our excess uh, cave wheat, our excess alfalfa, whatever else we can mill down, grains, whatever other grains we can mill down. I know we've got barley. Speaking of which, we pulled in a pile of surface crops and never went back and redeveloped our surface farm. All right. Fisheries running. We do need to set this stockpile on the outside to give its prepared fish to the main food stockpile, so that food is not stored here unless it is excess long term. We want it stored where it's going to be used. All right. Now we're coming up on 4 o'clock, and that's when I'm going to knock off for this afternoon, guys. Anybody have any questions before I go? He'd chuck all the wood that a woodchuck could if a woodchuck could chuck wood. My wife, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. Let's take stock here for a minute. Good pile of bolts. In Good pile of bolts, including some metal bolts for war. Believe they said they would make us rich for crowns, didn't they? Oh, you can apparently make the hair into crowns now. I didn't know that. That's neat. Hold up a sec. Wait. Hold on. Someone has a human hair amulet. And there's a human hair crown. I smell vampire. I thought you could get there. Hmm. Ah, there it is. Well, the good news is none of these guys are vampires. They have thoughts about having drank or eaten recently. Problem is, not enough of our dwarves actually do. Not sure why. We have plenty of booze. Everybody should have had a drink recently. Oh, I guess we have time for one last thing. I can set up the fire clay area. We'll store clay here. We'll go up one more floor and store sandbags there. Vampires do avoid drinking booze, but I only have like 8 people who have a contentment or an annoyance about drinking booze. I have 47 dwarves. You'd think they'd all have a thought because they all would have had a drink by now. I don't think we have 47 vampires in this fort. Definitely is not a supply issue. So we set up, but did not actually populate a jewelry area. We should finish that real quick. Now, the reason I'm making so many of these is not because I actually expect jewelry crafting or gem setting to be a fantastic sideline in here. It's simply because those jobs can be done in parallel while the other jobs are running. I can have 3 workshops cutting gems and 3 workshops setting gems, and I can have 2 stockpiles on this floor, one to cut, one to set, and a stockpile in the middle for items that are being encrusted, like mugs, for example. So, rough stuff on the left, cut stuff on the right, stuff to be encrusted in the middle. We can then link the workshops directly to those things and force them to encrust only the objects we want encrusted. Okay, and that takes care of jewelry working. We need to rebuild our dyer's shop, our soap maker shop, and build a siege workshop for next time, as well as a screw press. Okay, we can deal with those next session. That's no big deal. Those are all ancillary industries that we've already dealt with to the extent that we needed to immediately. Remember, we already made some soap for the hospital early on, so unless we have a sudden upswing in demand before I can build it next time, then we're going to be fine there. And with that, guys, it's 4 o'clock, so I'm going to go ahead and knock off for today. Tomorrow, I'm looking to resume at about 8 in the evening, probably, like previously through the week. So my wife would really like to play 7 Days to Die, but unfortunately, the Fun Pimps have decided that they're only going to allow streamers to play it all weekend. So we're probably going to play something else during the day, and then I'll stream a little bit for you guys in the evening, and then we'll pick up again on through the week at about 8 p.m. every night, Monday through Friday, as we continue 33 Days of Dwarf. As always, guys, I appreciate you showing up for the stream. Appreciate your questions and support. If you have the means, I would ask that you donate to help the Miracle Children's Network hospitals here. They're helping folks like me stick around to do the things that we do. And so, with that, guys, I'll go ahead and step out. Don't forget, if you donate at least $10, you can have a migrant named after you, not just in this fort, but in all of the forts from here for the rest of the 33-day event. If you donate at least $25, you can have one of the starting 7 identified after you, so long as there's any of them left. Remember, we call this Early Cat Catches the Dwarf. Once the starting 7 are gone, it's migrants only from then on in. Good luck, guys, and I'll see you tomorrow.